Welcome back to After the Battle on Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy. So today is going to be a very special edition of After the Battle because normally I just recap the fights that just happened, which was Carlos Prates absolutely starching Neil Magny. But I thought about it, and how about we recap that and then maybe do a little early preview for UFC 309, which is going down this weekend in New York. Jon Jones and Stipe. It's a stacked card. So I'm gonna recap the Carlos Prates fight and a couple fights from that card, and then do like a little, early preview, just kind of little sneak peek into UFC 309, some early thoughts, and then obviously Tuesday you're gonna get my in-depth breakdown, which you guys already have come to expect. So without further ado, my friends, let's get down to business. So Carlos Prates, I mean, he didn't just starch Neil Magny. And firstly, let's address the conspiracy BS. Oh, Neil Magny took a dive. Firstly, if you watch Neil Magny's fight against Santiago Ponzinibbio, he went down in the exact same fashion. Also, if you pull up the slow motion replay of Carlos Prates' knockout of Neil Magny, he clips him on kind of like right above the ear on the side of the head. And that's kind of where that equilibrium goes. So as soon as he hit him, I mean, he immediately shut off Neil Magny. And when you're talking about a guy like Carlos Prates, like let's look at his career numbers in terms of how many knockouts this guy has on his record. Okay, so you're talking about a guy in Prates who has 16 wins by knockout, taking on a guy in Neil Magny who has only 4 knockout losses, but 10 finish losses. I don't think you need to pay Neil Magny to take a dive against the guy in Prates who has, how many knockouts did I say? 16 knockout wins. Like, y'all got to chill with these conspiracy theories, man. I will let you know when some sketchy shit happens, whether it's judges' scorecards, whether it's Derek Minner versus Shai Yilan. I will let you know when someone takes a dive. Neil Magny did not take a dive. Neil Magny got knocked the you-know-what out. It was like in that scene in Friday, when Craig knocks out Debo and then, and then Smokey's like, you got knocked the fuck out. I think that's what happened, my friends. And just to give all the credit to Carlos Prates that he is due, man. He fought exactly how Carlos Prates fights. Like the reason people compare him to Anderson, it's not because their stance is opposite. Prates is an orthodox, Anderson Silva was southpaw, but it's because they're long, Brazilian too. They're long, they take their time, they try to find their reads, and then once they make their reads, they turn up and create beautiful violence and destruction. And the fight starts off, and Neil immediately goes for a takedown. Nice counters by Prates. In fact, Prates actually ends up reversing and getting on top of Neil. I'm like, okay, Carlos. And he could have stayed in the guard of Neil and try to land some ground and pound. But Neil, with that frame, it's super awkward. You can get tangled up. So Carlos lets him back up. Then we get a knockdown. And once that first knockdown happened, that was the moment when Carlos felt like, okay, now I found my range. Now it's time to turn up. And now it's time to eliminate Neil Magny. And he went after him with precision, with a certain poise and assertiveness. It was almost like he knew what was about to happen, and it's almost like Neil knew what was about to happen too. And you could say, oh, he was chasing Neil around the octagon. He was cutting the cage off, is what was happening. And eventually he finds the kill shot, that straight left, kind of slightly above the ear where the equilibrium goes, face plant, out cold, game, set, and match. Welcome to the top 15, Carlos Prates. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. I know at the end of the year, I do my year-end awards. I have Andrew Gomez hosted with me. We talk about the fight of the year, the fighter of the year, this to that. One of the categories is the rookie of the year. Y'all know who the candidates are. Jon Silva, Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira. But I think that Carlos Prates came out here and he ran away with it. He sealed the deal, man. And he's got more wins than all those guys. He's ranked. He's headlining cards. I think he's the rookie of the year. It's funny. We were joking around. I was joking around yesterday. Like, it's only been a week since a certain, monumental moment went down in America. And since then, I mean, you got terrorists putting down their guns. You got Bitcoin shooting up. You got the economy looking better. Knockouts are back in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. So it's great to see this sport great again. And, hopefully we never go through a knockout drought again, because I mean, man, since June 1st, compared to last night, man, we didn't have too many knockouts and knockdowns, and it was good to see. Once once things changed, all of a sudden the knockouts are back in the UFC. So you love to see it. But no, all jokes aside, man, Carlos Prates did exactly what he was supposed to do, and now you move up the rankings. He asked for Jack Della Maddalena. I think that Maddalena is probably going to get a little bit higher profile of a fight right now. I think that Colby Covington called out Maddalena. I think there were talks about Usman and Maddalena. So I think Maddalena is going to get a top 5 guy or a bigger name. But Prates, he gave a second option, and that was Jeff Neal. And I love that because you just beat the number 15 guy, Neil Magny. Now you're asking for the number 10 guy, Jeff Neal. Interestingly enough, Neil Magny has a win over Jeff Neal. But yeah, now let's see that fight. I love that fight for Prates. Just the range advantage and the inconsistency of Jeff Neal. Just the momentum where they're both at. I know Neal's coming off a great win, but he beat a 40-year-old lightweight. Now you're gonna go fight this, the rookie of the year. So yeah, I want to see Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal. Rainer de Ridder and Gerald Meerschaert, man, they put on a hell of a fight. I was surprised it didn't get the fight of the night. What was really interesting about this fight is that Rainer de Ridder GM3'd GM3. What I mean by that is, like, usually Gerald Meerschaert's the one that has the big moments and his opponents are the ones that win the minutes. In this case, it was Gerald Meerschaert winning the minutes and Rainer de Ridder winning the moments. Gerald Meerschaert was like doing his thing in that first round, and then he just got bonked with a big shot, and all those 4+ minutes of work went out the window. You got to give that first round to Rainer de Ridder. Second round, Gerald makes some adjustments. He's looking good again. But when it came down to that third round, it really seemed like after that knockdown in round 1, Gerald significantly slowed down. And for the guy who's known for getting all those third round finishes, Rainer de Ridder turned the tables on him. He's the one that got that third round finish. And man, what a sick fight. I thought that was the best fight of the night. So let's pull up a list of current UFC fighters, and let's see who we want to match up this dude, Rainer de Ridder, with next, because obviously you beat GM3. That's not something you scoff at. So let's take a look at middleweight real quick. So I'm pulling up not the rankings, but the actual roster itself at middleweight. So you beat a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, who not only did you beat him, you subbed the guy with the most submissions in middleweight history, a guy who has more submissions than Anderson Silva, than Damian Maia, than Royce Gracie. You did it, kid. I mean, I've always wanted to see the Gerald Meerschaert versus Paul Craig fight. I know Paul's got the Bo Nickel fight coming up next week. After that, match them up. And then as far as Rainer de Ridder, listen, man, it's now or never. I think he's about to turn 35. Like, it's time to move up the rankings. So what you could do is you could do Michel Demolidor Pereira versus Rainer de Ridder. Tell me that's not a sick fight. You could do the Iron Turtle, Jung Young Park versus Rainer de Ridder. Rainer de Ridder, not Brenner, excuse me. Brendan Allen. Yeah, I know he wants to get back on track. What about Jacob Malkoun, the underrated grinder from down under? Everyone's favorite IT guy. Yeah, Jacob Malkoun versus Rainer de Ridder. Gregory Hobo Cop. What about Hobo Cop versus de Ridder? Like, there's so many ways you can go with this. So let's see what Sean and Mick have in mind. Gaston Bolaños went out there and defeated Cortavius Romeus, and like, Romeus could have won that fight, but that just came down to seasoning, experience. He simply wasn't ready to make the right adjustments and decision making throughout that fight, because I truly do believe that little things here and there, you stay on top a little bit more in this spot, you don't give up this position. I think he wins that fight. But man, I love the 12-6 elbows being back when Gaston Bolaños is escaping that position, and he just like, dude, that was sick. That shit was sick, man. So shout out Bolaños. Hey, look forward to seeing what they do with him. And Cortavius Romeus, look, he's just a kid. It's your UFC debut. You'll learn from it. You'll be back better. Jillian Robertson dominated Luana Pinheiro. I know she only won 2 of the 3 rounds, but like, you know, it was 1-1 going to the third. She was the one that dug deeper, didn't expand her record for most submissions and finishes in that weight class, but still did her thing. In fact, Luana was ranked ahead of Jillian, which is kind of sus. Jillian was only number 14 now. So like there's so many ways you go with Jillian. Like, what about Jillian and Angela Hill? I mean, does that not sound good to y'all? Jillian and Angela Hill? What do y'all think about Jillian and Marina Rodriguez? That's like the epitome of striker versus grappler. Like, because like, look, Jillian's 14, Angela Hill's 12, Marina Rodriguez is 9. Like I'm saying, I don't think these rankings are that accurate. So let's get Jillian in there with Angela Hill. Let's get Jillian in there with Marina Rodriguez. And I was gonna say let's make strawweight great again. I'm gonna chill out with all that. But yeah, I think those are the 2 fights I want to see from Jillian and Luana. You know, you can cover your flight. We'll have you in the NFC against Ivana Petrovic. I think that's a good NFC main event. So, oh, here we go. Mansur Abdul Malik absolutely smoking Dusko Todorovic. And my issue was like, oh, it's minus 450. There's no value. It's accurate. There was value. It should have been like minus 1,500, minus 2,500. Like he just made such easy work. There's such, I don't want, again, when I talk about someone's physical attributes and what kind of physical specimen and beast they are, that's not at all to discredit their hard work and their improvements. And this kid, Mansur Abdul Malik, he's just got it, man. He's just got it. He's an overwhelming presence in there. And some of the shots he was throwing, some of the ones that didn't even land, just are like, man, if I get hit with that, it's like a Francis Ngannou Overeem type knockout waiting to happen. The ground and pound was brutal, as you saw last night, as you saw on tape in his LFA fight. Like, yeah, this kid, Mansur Abdul Malik, just keep bringing him up the right way. And I think this guy's got top 15 potential all day. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I wish he had more than one fight this year so he could be in talks for the rookie of the year. But that's one hell of a UFC debut, Mansur. So I cannot wait to see what they do with him next. Let's try to match. Let's try to match him up. Let me ask you your opinion on this. So I know that this opponent is much more experienced than Mansur Abdul Malik, but just in terms of the physical qualities, do y'all think it's too far-fetched to put Mansur Abdul Malik in there with Kelvin Gastelum? Like, is that too much too soon, or is that catching him at the right time and just a bad matchup for Kelvin? You know, other options. I mean, if you really want to take it slow, again, you can do the Mikhail Olegzaychuks, you can do the Bruno Blindados, you can throw Mark Andre Barrio in there with him. Yeah, I like I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but I really think Mansur Abdul Malik versus Kelvin Gastelum, despite the experience difference, despite everything, I think that fight would be fireworks, and I think someone would hit the deck for sure. And I do have a pick for that fight, but let's wait to see if it gets announced. I mean, wait to see if it even gets matched. Probably doesn't. You know, probably a pipe dream, but I think y'all know who I got. I think this kid Mansur Abdul Malik has the potential to do big things in this sport. For only 7-0, and this is how you're handling these guys, just wait. So, and then you hear him talk. The kid's got an incredible head on his shoulders. I mean, very well spoken, but like very thoughtful, very intuitive, very confident, a lot of swagger. Like, I like everything about this kid. So yeah, I'm just telling y'all now. I said this before he fought on Contender Series, and now I'm saying that now after he's made his UFC debut. Mansur Abdul Malik is one of my prospects to keep an eye out for. So definitely. Dusko, it sucks, man. He came into the UFC off a knockout win over Michel Pereira. I thought that Dusko could be a future top 15 guy. I was way off about that. You're not always going to be right in your projections in terms of how far fighters can go. It just never panned out. And unfortunately, I think he's about to wash out the UFC. So, you know, he's still young. I hope he can go back to his regionals, get some wins under his belt, get his confidence back, maybe even drop to 170. You saw the size difference in there. And if he can do that, maybe he can come back. But maybe his confidence is just ultimately shot. You just can't fight with your hands down and your chin in the air like that. And Also, Dusko's known for his insane toughness, and in this fight, he was covering up. He was covering up and said no more. So it's not just that he's too small for 85s. It's not just that he keeps his chin up in the air and his hands down. He doesn't. He didn't show those dog-esque qualities that we've seen in the past. So I hope Dusko takes the right amount of time off and figures things out and take it from there, kid. Denise Gomez and Carolina, I'll always respect Carolina, man. Cashing that plus 215 against Rose Namajunas in Atlanta, legend of women's MMA. Denise Gomez was just a step ahead of her, and that's all that was. So, yeah, Denise Gomez is going to climb up the ladder, and Carolina, I hope they keep her around as long as she wants to keep fighting. If she wants to keep fighting, Carolina, we'll let you fight as long as you want, girl. Elizio Zaleski dos Santos against Zach Scroggin. I mean, straight up, he kicked him in the Scroggin, man. I mean, there was nothing remotely competitive about this fight. And this kid Scroggin was coming in here. He had never lost to anything. Undefeated as a pro, undefeated as an amateur. He's like a 6'3" dude. Props to him taking the fight on very short notice. They'll give you another fight. Don't worry, kid. But just make your debut against Zaleski on short notice unless you are a seriously credentialed fighter coming into the UFC, which Mr. Scroggin wasn't, and Zaleski treated him accordingly. So let's rebook that Zaleski and Dalby rematch and take it from there. And Zach Scroggin, I don't know what direction they want to go with him. Let's take a look at welterweight real quick, see what kind of welterweights we got in the picture. Let me pull up Endeavor records so I can see what these 0-2 guys are looking like. You got the Reese McKees, who's 0-4. You got Kiefer Crosby, who's 0-2. Darius Flowers, who's 0-3. Japanese Connor, who's 0-2. Hey, how about Japanese Connor versus Zach Scroggin? Yeah, that's the fight right there. Or I got one. How about the kid that lost to Danny Barlow, Nikolai Vernateknikov? How about him and Zach Scroggin? So, 0-1 versus 0-1 in the UFC. It's got to be something like that. So, yeah. Charles Radke and Semmelsberger. I mean, one thing I tweeted out yesterday, and I stand by it: when a fighter shows you that they've lost their mojo, believe them. We were talking about how Semmelsberger's got 10 knockdowns in the UFC and all these things. He fought close, competitive with a lot of tough guys like Chaos Williams, but you've seen a massive shift and just a diminishment of the confidence of Semmelsberger. He truly lost his mojo. And shout out to Radke. Just, you knocked out a guy who's got 10 UFC knockdowns on his record. You did your thing, and now you move on. You're 3-1 on your first UFC contract. Now I'm pretty damn confident they're gonna re-sign you. So what do we do with this kid Chuck Buffalo, man? I mean, I think there's options. I think there's guys like Carlos Leal, who a lot of people thought was on the wrong end of one of the worst robberies in a long time. What do y'all think about the possibility of Charles Radke versus Carlos Leal? You could also do Charles Radke versus the Basil Hafez and Oban Elliott, winner or loser. You could do Radke versus Johnny Parsons. Tell me that would not be a fun ass fight. Gabe Green. There's so many options. So we'll see which way they want to go, because you still want to slow roll it a little bit. The kid's still, he's only 10-4. So let's take it one step at a time. As far as Semmelsberger, it sucks, man. But you've officially washed out the UFC. I fully expect him to be released, and hopefully for his sake, similar to Dusko, let's go back to our regionals. Let's get back to what brought us to the dance. See a mind coach, do exactly what you need to do to get yourself ready, to get yourself right mentally, and then come back after you got a couple wins on your regionals. Because Semmelsberger is not an old guy, man, and I just think that once your confidence is shot and you've lost your mojo, like you saw like Carlos Condit back in the day, the natural born killer, to all of a sudden he was having trouble pulling the trigger. Not to compare Semmelsberger and Condit. What I am saying is, just once a fighter shows you they lost their mojo, believe them. And I'm hoping that Semmelsberger can retain it. And speaking of losing your mojo, Blackshear versus Stamen. I mean, Blackshear just comes out here, just ran through Cody Stamen, man. I mean, the flying knees, the punches, the chokes. I mean, Jesus. I was surprised he survived that mounted guillotine, but that rear naked choke, the angle he had, the squeeze, I was like, oh man, like if Cody doesn't tap, that wasn't a matter of like going to sleep. That was a matter of like getting your neck ripped off. So I'm glad they let go, tapped, you let go of it quick, live to fight another day. One thing I talked about in my breakdown for the Blackshear and Stamen fight was I said, if both guys were to get cut from the UFC today, I see Blackshear going back to his regional scene, getting some wins under his belt, coming back to the UFC. Whereas Stamen, I felt like if he loses this, he's probably going to retire. Go back and work on your farm. You got a lot of things going on. You don't need this shit, my man. So, and I think Stamen showed that that's probably it. Look, sometimes fighters don't know when to say when, but Stamen, I heard some interviews with him recently. He does seem like a sharp guy, like a bright guy. And I think he's got a lot of other things going on. He don't need this shit no more. And for Blackshear, great job, kid. Now you're going to continue to move up the rankings. Tell me y'all's opinion about this. What do y'all think about Blackshear versus Charles Jourdain? Both coming off nasty submissions. Blackshear and Charles Jourdain is a sick fight. Let's see what else we got at bantamweight. So for Damon Blackshear, I mean, Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira, tell me that's not a sick fight. And Gian Matsumoto, he's been doing his thing too. Brady Heastan, that'd be a little grappler's delight there. You want to put him against the other Bashrab brother, Javid? I mean, he's already fought Farid. Go fight Javid now. So yeah, lots of options for Damon Blackshear. He's in a very good spot. Happy for him, bouncing back from that loss. Got your 50K bonus, and now you move on to the next level. So props to you, kid. Tresean Gore and Antonio Tricali, two NFC vets going at it, but Tresean Gore was actually an NFC champ. Antonio Tricali didn't even get a win in the NFC, let alone the UFC. Yeah, I think it's cool to see Tresean get some consistency. I know it's been years since he's fought, but consistency in terms of the results. He's literally won 2 back-to-back fights with nasty, disgusting guillotines, like gross guillotines, like kind of stuff that like I'm a guillotine guy. Like I've grappled once or twice. I'm a 2-stripe purple belt and specifically a front choke guy. And those 2 guillotines he hit are like things that you do not see every day at all. So like I said, with Trey, it's about the mental catching up with the physical. Once that happens, man, I mean, sky could be the limit because all the attributes you want in terms of athleticism, in terms of even technique, like it's all there. It's just about, the guy has more fight pullouts than he has actual fights. So if he can just level up the mental, which I heard his interview yesterday, and he sounded so much more mature. Like if you watch his fight with Brian Battle, like before the fight starts, he's like pacing back and forth, talking all kinds of shit to Battle, just like pulling all kinds of stunts. And I really feel like last night was a huge step in the right direction. To come off that layoff, you switch camps, you're feeling comfortable in there, and you fought this guy exactly how you're supposed to, got the job done. So Trey, shout out to you, man. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. So, and Tricali, I know he lost this fight, but he's winning at life. I mean, he gets to go home to Mackenzie Dern. So even though you're going to probably get cut from the UFC, you're winning at life, my boy. So shout out Tricoli. But as far as matching up Trey next, I mean, I think with a guy like Trey, you put him in there with a Cedriquez Dumas. You put him in there with a Ihor Potieria. You put him in there with a Zachary Reese. You put him in there with a Cesar Almeida. You put him in there with a Julian Marquez. There's so many ways you can go in terms of matching up Trey. He's so young into his UFC. Rematch Brundage. I think you beat Brundage in a rematch. So that's what I want to see with Trey. Regarding Mullins and Claudia Segula, man, the first like 4 minutes of that fight were competitive. And then as soon as Melissa was able to get this girl down, she was a wrap. It was a wrap. So shout out Melissa. I know she missed weight, but she looks super dominant. And we'll take it from there. And Claudia, she'll be back. Dropped her debut, but you'll get another chance, girl. All right, let's talk about UFC 309 a bit. All right, so let me just preface this by saying that I'm not going to give you the breakdown that I'm going to give you on Tuesday. Y'all know that Tuesday is my full card breakdown where I go in depth and do what we've been doing for 10 years. But right now, a little something, new for the fans, just to give y'all a little early preview, just share some early thoughts, and let's do it. Let's do it. So, main event, Jon Jones and Stipe. I mean, listen, you got two of the greatest to ever do it. I mean, the greatest, arguably, to ever do it, Jon Jones. I mean, he's never lost a fight. Like, people's only criticisms are the out of the cage stuff, but he's never lost a fight. Oh, he lost to Dom Reyes. Like, no, he didn't. Jonah Hill cut. No, he did not. He lost the first 2 rounds, and then Reyes broke, and John took over the last 3. Like, okay, that's a John win. But as far as Jon and Stipe, how they match up, what's interesting about that matchup is that Stipe has actually a lot of qualities that on paper could possibly give Jones problems, like him being a D1 wrestler, him having one hitter quitter, him having a ton more experience at heavyweight, him actually being the heavier guy in this spot. Yeah, and then with Jon, it's just hard to pick against a man who's never lost a fight before. But like we say, you stick around long enough, eventually you will take that first L. So yeah, and then you have Stipe coming off the big layoff, but like with certain guys, you put stock into that, but with other guys, you might not, because like Jones came off that massive layoff, then he looked better than ever against Gon. So yeah, this super intriguing fight. I can't wait to talk about it on Tuesday. So Charles du Bronx Oliveira against Michael Chandler. Man, the first time they fought was absolute chaos. Michael Chandler almost had him out of there in that first round. Charles almost had Mike out of there in that first round too. Took his back nicely. They had some great moments, and then that second round, Charles comes out there and just flatlines him, man. And I think Charles still got it, man. I mean, his last fight, he went out there against Arman Sarukian. I definitely thought he lost the fight, but like he fought competitive and showed like, hey, I'm still in the mix. And with Chandler, he hasn't fought since the Poirier fight. Is he 40 yet? Is my boy Chandler 40 yet? He's 38. Okay, he's not 40 yet. But Chandler is a balls to the walls guy, and balls to the wall, not balls to the walls. He's a balls to the wall guy, and he's gonna either knock you out or gas out and lose. So I can't wait to break that one down. Bo Nickel and Paul Craig. You want to know something hilarious? I left a comment on Paul Craig's Instagram when this fight got announced. I said, "You've submitted better people before," And dude, that comment blew the fuck up, because Paul Craig has a massive support in Scotland, as he should. So all the Scotland people were loving my comment, and then all the other people were like, "Yeah, but Bo Nickel is God's gift to fighting." They're like, "Yeah, like who has he beat that's better than Bo Nickel?" UFC champion Jamal Hill, UFC title contender Ankalaev, both via triangle. Well, one armbar. I mean, Jamal didn't even tap, but Magomed tapped with like 2 seconds left. But still, those two guys are high more credential than Bo Nickel in MMA. Maybe not in wrestling, but in MMA. But of course, styles make fights. And I'm guessing Bo's going to try to keep this standing, not even try to go to the mat with this guy. But like, I still need to see more from Bo. Like, dude, like you ain't fighting fucking Jamie Pickett, Val Woodburn, and Cody Brundage anymore, but I really want to see if Bo Nickel takes him down, because then you're in Paul Craig's world, and Paul Craig could submit a guy with this hype / wrestling credentials. That'd be incredible. But I think the line indicates that's not going to happen. But man, I'm excited for that fight. Karine Silva and Viviane Araujo. Man, Karine Silva's been doing her thing, man. She truly has. I mean, to come out here and get that what was it called? A Z-Lock submission? I'm like, okay, girl. Like I said, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I never even heard of that. The Marina Moroz submission was nasty against Lipsky. Did her thing there. Like, I've been very impressed. And with Vivi, I've always been a fan of Vivi. I truly have. My issue with Vivi is that she turns 38 in like a week or two. And she's getting to that point where, these young emerging girls are going to take her spot. So it'll be interesting to see if Karine gets extended top control on Vivi. Mauricio Shogun Hufi. versus James Lontop Lollipop. Yeah, they say it's a mismatch on paper. I do think Lollipop is better than what he's shown, but I think Hoofy might be the next, might be the lightweight version of the Fighting Nerds badasses coming up, just with his own unique, unorthodox style and the swag he has right now. And until like Hoofy like really gets, you know, some kind of check where like some kind of confidence check, yeah, I would not bet against this guy. Jonathan Martinez and Marcus McGee, it's a hell of a fight because Marcus McGee is undefeated in the UFC. He's been starching everybody he's fighting. But Jonathan Martinez has seen a completely different level of competition, man. I mean, he's got wins over Said Nurmagomedov against Adrian Yanez, and then the Aldo fight. You know, props to Aldo. You went to Brazil to fight Aldo. I think that he probably grew up having a poster of Aldo on his wall. I mean, Jonathan Martinez is known for his kicking game. Guess what Aldo was known for in the WEC? His kicking game. I think Jonathan, you know, was idolizing him in there, you know, asking him for selfies and autographs. And I don't think he gives a flying fuck, let alone has even heard of Marcus McGee until this fight got announced. So I do not expect Jonathan Martinez to be starstruck in this matchup. And Marcus McGee, he's the opposite of starstruck. I mean, this guy is a destructive force. So I can't wait to break that fight down on Tuesday. Chris Weidman and Eric Anders. I actually have a bet on this fight. I bet on Chris Weidman. Y'all are gonna be like, Dan, seriously? Because when the leg break happened against Uriah Hall, I actually cashed Hall there. I felt terrible about it, but I still cashed him there. I said, if Chris Weidman ever comes back, he will be faded. And I actually faded him against Brad Tavares. And let me say this, he gave me a fucking sweat against Brad Tavares, but also Brad Tavares on paper is kind of a tough matchup with the sense that Brad has that legendary takedown defense. So he was able to keep it standing and just leg kick him to death. But Eric, I love me some Eric Anders, but Eric ain't exactly known for legendary takedown defense. Eric's a bit on the slower side. Eric admitted, not just to me personally, but to Joe Rogan, that he's also at the end of his run. So I'm going to break it down. Like I said, give you a real breakdown on Tuesday, but right now I'm just saying, why is this not minus 110 a piece? Jamie Pickett dropped Eric. Like we talk about Chris Weidman's chin. Only one of these guys has been dropped twice in their last two fights, and it wasn't Chris Weidman. So I'm just saying, man, I think that fight should be lying closer. Jim Miller and Damon Jackson, two vets going at it. Gotta love Jim Miller, probably expanding the record here for most UFC fights. And man, it'd be cool to see him add to even more of his records with the submissions, with the finishes. And Damon Jackson, the leech, he's a grinder. It should be it should be fun while it lasts. Marcin Tybura and Yonata Deniz. I do have a pick on this fight, and I do have an opinion on it, but the line is going back and forth, so I don't want to say what I think and then have, you know, the line shift dramatically and I miss out on the side that I want to get dog money on. So yeah, I look forward to breaking that one down Tuesday. Mickey Gall and Rami Ibrahimai. Listen, man, Mickey Gall, like, I know he's 7-6, but what you got to understand is that whole 7-6 record minus like his pro debut was all in the UFC. So when you go from fighting Mike Jackson and CM Punk, hey kid, now you're fighting Randy Brown. You know what I mean? It's like, and he goes a distance with him and wins a round. Like I respect Mickey Gall a lot, but obviously he needs to patch up a lot of holes in his game, because when you don't even have the chance to develop on a regional scene, you just come straight to the UFC. You have to grow up in the big show. Man, that's so tough. But with Ramiz, we know the deal with Ramiz, it's usually first round sub or bust. And Mickey seems like a tough guy to sub. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. Oben Elliott and Basil Hafez. Listen, Oben Elliott's got a tremendous amount of hype. He's got Chael Sonnen backing him. And Basil Hafez, man, I feel like some of his hype died down. You know, coming off the Madalena fight, people are saying he won the Madalena fight. I wasn't one of those people, but I still thought he performed admirably. And then the Mickey Gall fight, a lot of people thought that he didn't look that great there. So he's an actual big underdog here, which was surprising. And then Veronica Hardy and Eduarda Moura. Veronica Hardy, man, she has been doing her thing. Like, to start your UFC career off 0-3, and now you're 4-1 in your last 5. Like, those are the kind of things you love to see. And Veronica is a super cool chick. On a side note, I met her when PFL came to Atlanta. Like, yeah, she's a super cool young lady. And then her opponent, Eduardo Mora, listen, just went to a split with Denise Gomez. Before that, smashed Montserrat Conejo. But the issue is she's missed weight for both of her fights. at strawweight, but now she's moving up to flyweight. And the interesting thing about it is Veronica Hardy is actually a bit on the smaller side for strawweight. But what I do like, excuse me, on the smaller side for flyweight. But what I do like about it is that her being the smaller fighter, with her style in particular, she's going to be a lot faster than these girls. She's going to be like, it's like Tom and Jerry. Like you can't find the mouse because it's moving all over the place. You know what I'm saying? So I think that Veronica Hardy's been doing some good things. So yeah. So guys, I cannot wait to actually really give you all the real breakdown for this on Tuesday. Today's Sunday. So today and Monday, I'm gonna be doing all my research, let y'all know what I really truly think, what I found on the tape, who my bets, my picks are. I already told you all my first bet of the card. Get in while you can on that plus 130 on Chris if you're into that, or fade it, or wait for it to come down, take the opposite side, whatever you do. Just get the best of the number. That's all I ask you to do, and form your own opinions. And I want to thank you for all your support. You guys are incredible. So thank you so much. Please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, share if you feel so inclined. Follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks, on Twitter at Half the Battle HQ, on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod, on TikTok at Half the Battle Podcast, on YouTube at Half the Battle Official. I'm everywhere podcasts are found, the Spotify's, the iTunes, the this, the that. It's all there. Thank you to the fans. Thank you, Meticulous, for the amazing graphics, thumbnails, shorts, reels, all that. Everything you contribute is just helping, taking the channel to the next level, and I'm so grateful for it. And to the fans, I know I've already thanked y'all, but I can't thank y'all enough, because without you, there is no Half the Battle. So thank y'all so much. I hope you enjoyed this little preview. Just wait till Tuesday. That's when the real stuff's coming out. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.